The lines between justice and revenge were beginning to blur. ##### the first strike. Armed with Daniel's information and her own investigations, Isabella launched her first major attack. She revealed to the Securities and Exchange Commission that Genesis Corporation had been engaged in insider trading, using information obtained through Blackwood Industries networks. The scandal exploded across financial news channels. Stock prices plummeted. Federal investigators descended on both companies. Isabella watched from her office as Marcus held an emergency press conference, defending his company while carefully distancing Blackwood Industries from Genesis's illegal activities. He looked stressed, angry, and betrayed, exactly how Isabella had felt during her trial. Good, she thought. Now you know how it feels. But victory felt hollow. As she watched him field harsh questions from reporters, something inside her twisted uncomfortably. This was what she wanted, wasn't it? To see him suffer as she had suffered? Her phone rang. "Marcus, we need to talk." His voice was tight with barely controlled fury. "In person. Tonight." "I'm not sure that's wise," Isabella said carefully. "I know you're behind the SEC investigation," he said bluntly. "Don't bother denying it. The question is why. What did I do to make an enemy of Elena Rivers?" "Nothing," she wanted to say. "You made an enemy of Isabella Lauren. But Elena Rivers was just her weapon." "Business is business, Marcus." She kept her voice cool. "Perhaps you should have been more careful about your partnerships." "My office. 8 o'clock. We're going to settle this." He hung up before she could refuse. #### the dangerous meeting. Marcus's office was empty when Isabella arrived, most of the staff long gone for the day. She found him standing by the window, silhouetted against the city lights, a glass of whiskey in his hand. "What do you want from me?" Daniel asked quietly. "Information. Evidence of the questionable deals, the irregular accounting, the pressure from Genesis Corporation. Help me build a case against their practices, and I'll help you save your company." Daniel studied her face, trying to read her intentions. Finally, he nodded slowly. "There's something you should know about the Isabella Lauren case." Isabella's heart stopped. "What about it?" "I never believed she was guilty," Daniel said. "The evidence appeared too conveniently, too perfectly. I tried to investigate further, but Marcus shut me down. He said the case was closed and I needed to stop questioning it. But I've always wondered." "Wondered what?" "If Marcus framed her." Daniel met her eyes. "If he sacrificed an innocent woman for whatever deal he was making with Genesis." Isabella had to look away, afraid her expression would reveal too much. Someone had believed her. Even when she thought she was completely alone, someone had doubted the official story. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked, her voice slightly unsteady. "Because if you're planning to take down Marcus for his business practices, you should know that they might go deeper than you think. And because," he paused, "you remind me of her. Of Isabella. The determination in your eyes. The way you refused to back down." Isabella managed a careful smile. "I'll take that as a compliment." "It is." Daniel handed her a flash drive. "This has copies of the questionable transactions from the past 2 years. Use it carefully." As they parted ways, Isabella clutched the flash drive, her emotions in turmoil. She had gained an ally in crucial evidence, but she had also discovered that her crusade for revenge might hurt someone who had tried to help her. Isabella's research into Blackwood Industries led her to Daniel Chun, Marcus's business partner and CFO. Daniel was brilliant with numbers, but had been increasingly marginalized in company decisions since Marcus's marriage to Sophia. She arranged a private meeting with him at a downtown cafe, far from the company's usual haunts. "Why did you want to see me?" Daniel asked cautiously, stirring his coffee. "Because we have a common problem," Isabella said directly. "Marcus Blackwood is destroying what you built together, and I think you know it." Daniel's face tightened. "What are you talking about?" Since his marriage to Sophia, Blackwood Industries has shifted from innovative technology to aggressive acquisitions and questionable business practices. You've objected to several recent deals, haven't you? But your concerns were overruled. How do you know that? Because I make it my business to know everything about the companies I deal with. Isabella leaned forward. Sophia and her father are using Marcus to merge Genesis Corporation with Blackwood Industries. Once the merger is complete, they'll push you out entirely. You'll lose everything you worked for. Daniel was silent for a long moment. Even if that's true, why would you care? This was the moment. Isabella could tell him everything. That she was Isabella Lauron, that Marcus had framed her, that revenge drove her every move. But something made her hold back. Because I believe good companies should be run by good people, she said instead. And I think you're one of the good ones. It wasn't entirely a lie. Through her investigation, she had learned that Daniel had voted against her prosecution. He had been the only board member to advocate for a proper investigation rather than a rushed trial. He had lost that fight but had tried. You're different from other executives, Marcus told her over dinner at an exclusive restaurant. Sophia was conveniently away on a spa retreat. Most people in our world are so predictable. But I can't quite figure you out. Maybe that's because there's nothing to figure out, Isabella replied, sipping her wine. Maybe I'm exactly what I appear to be. I don't believe that. His eyes studied her face with unsettling intensity. Everyone has secrets, Elena. What are yours? For a moment, Isabella wanted to rip off her mask and scream the truth. To watch his face as he realized the woman he was flirting with was the one he had destroyed. But revenge required patience. If I told you, she smiled mysteriously, they wouldn't be secrets anymore. ####the cracks begin to show. As Isabella spent more time in Marcus's orbit, she began noticing things that didn't fit her image of him as a heartless villain. He donated anonymously to children's hospitals. He personally mentored young executives regardless of their connections. He had a dry sense of humor that occasionally made her forget to hate him. Worse, she caught glimpses of unhappiness beneath his polished exterior. His marriage to Sophia was clearly loveless, a business arrangement that brought neither of them joy. Sometimes, when he thought no one was watching, his expression would cloud with something that looked like regret. It would be easier if he were completely evil, Isabella thought. Easier to hate a monster than a complicated human being. But she couldn't afford doubt. She remembered the trial, the prison cell, the humiliation of scrubbing floors while her former peers walked past without seeing her. She remembered how he had looked at her that day in the conference room, with such cold contempt. No, she couldn't let fleeting sympathy derail 18 months of planning. An unexpected ally. She shook his hand, allowing the contact to linger just a moment. His grip was firm, confident. He had no idea he was touching the woman whose life he had destroyed. This is my wife Sophia, Marcus gestured. Sophia's eyes narrowed as she assessed Isabella with barely concealed suspicion. Women like Sophia always recognized competition. Charming dress, Sophia said with false sweetness. Is that last season's Valentino? This season's custom piece, actually, Isabella smiled. The designer owed me a favor. The subtle power play established, Marcus laughed. Please join us for dinner. I'd love to discuss the tech patents your company acquired. Blackwood Industries is very interested in a partnership. How interesting. Isabella accepted a champagne flute. I was under the impression you preferred to destroy your competition rather than partner with them. Something flickered in Marcus's expression, surprise, perhaps even respect. He was used to people being intimidated by him. I prefer to win, he corrected smoothly. How I accomplish that depends on the opponent. And which am I? Isabella met his gaze directly. Opponent or opportunity? I'm hoping to find out. #### playing the long game. Over the next few weeks, Isabella carefully orchestrated multiple chance encounters with Marcus. A charity auction where she outbid him for a piece he wanted, only to gift it to him afterward. A business conference where her presentation directly challenged his company's strategy. A corporate board meeting where she maneuvered herself onto the same committee. Each interaction was designed to intrigue him, to make herself unforgettable. And it worked. Marcus began pursuing Elena Rivers with the same intensity he brought to business deals. Lunch meetings turned into dinners. Business discussions became personal conversations. He started calling her directly, bypassing assistants and formal channels. The return to Marcus's world. The Grandview Hotel ballroom glittered with wealth and power. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing lights across designer gowns and tailored tuxedos. This was where the city's elite gathered for the annual Business Leadership Gala. An event Isabella had attended many times before, always on Marcus's arm. Tonight, she returned as Elena Rivers. Isabella adjusted her emerald silk gown and checked her reflection one final time. The transformation was complete. Even she sometimes forgot the frightened woman she had been. This version, confident, mysterious, untouchable, felt like armor. "Ms. Rivers," a server approached with champagne, "Mr. Blackwood has requested your presence at his table." Her heart skipped, but her face remained perfectly calm. "Tell Mr. Blackwood I'll join him shortly." This was it. 18 months of planning, of rebuilding herself from ashes, all leading to this moment. Isabella took a breath and walked into the ballroom, every eye turning to watch the mysterious Elena Rivers make her entrance. ####the first encounter. Marcus stood near the bar, surrounded by executives and admirers. At 32, he was even more handsome than Isabella remembered, tall, with perfectly styled dark hair and those piercing blue eyes. He wore power as easily as his expensive tuxedo. Beside him stood his wife, Sophia Genesis Blackwood, beautiful in a cold, calculated way, with platinum blonde hair and a smile that never reached her eyes. She clutched Marcus's arm possessively, scanning the room for threats to her position. "Ms. Rivers," Marcus turned as Isabella approached, his smile practiced and charming. "I'm so glad you could make it. I've been hoping to meet you for months." "Mr. Blackwood," Isabella kept her voice slightly lower than natural, with a hint of an accent she'd practiced endlessly. "Your reputation precedes you." Good, she told herself. That soft girl had been destroyed. This new woman would not only survive, she would make Marcus Blackwood pay for every moment of suffering he had caused. As Elena finalized the details of a major business deal that would force Blackwood Industries to negotiate with her directly, Isabella allowed herself a small, cold smile. The game was about to begin, and this time she would be the one writing the rules. She changed her appearance completely. Her long brown hair was cut into a sleek black bob. Colored contacts turned her warm brown eyes into striking gray. She lost 20 pounds through stress and deliberate diet. She studied the mannerisms of wealthy socialites, took online courses in voice modulation, and practiced until Isabella Laurent had completely disappeared. In her place stood Elena Rivers, mysterious, sophisticated, and wealthy. Someone with a reputation for turning failing companies into gold mines through aggressive takeovers and strategic investments. 1 year after her release from prison, Elena Rivers acquired her first major company, a small tech firm that held patents for software Blackwood Industries desperately needed for their next major project. Isabella smiled as she signed the acquisition papers with her new name. The pieces were falling into place. #### The plan takes shape. Elena Rivers quickly became known in business circles as a brilliant but enigmatic investor. She attended the right parties, made the right connections, and carefully built a network of allies who owed her favors. She never mentioned her past. As far as anyone knew, she was a self-made millionaire who had made her fortune in Asian markets before returning to the States. Through careful manipulation and strategic business moves, Elena positioned herself to be exactly where Marcus Blackwood would notice her. She acquired stakes in companies in his sphere, made deals with his competitors, and created situations where their paths would inevitably cross. But even as she planned her revenge, Isabella sometimes caught sight of herself in mirrors and barely recognized the cold, calculating woman staring back. The girl who had believed in love and loyalty seemed like a distant dream. This new version of herself was harder, sharper, willing to use any weapon available. The grief and self-pity that had defined her for months began to transform into something else. Something harder, sharper, more dangerous. Anger. Pure, focused, burning anger. Isabella opened her old laptop, the one thing the court had returned to her, and started researching. She learned everything she could about Marcus's new position at Blackwood Industries, his marriage to Sophia Genesis, his business ventures, his allies, his weaknesses. She discovered that her trial evidence was stored in a private law firm's database. She found forums where hackers shared techniques. She taught herself coding, digital forensics, and data recovery. Every spare moment between her 3 jobs, she studied and planned. It took her 4 months of careful work, but she finally recovered deleted files from her old laptop. The real files before Marcus had corrupted them. She found traces of his hacking attempts, evidence of his digital footprint in her accounts, proof that someone with administrator access at Blackwood Industries had manipulated the original evidence. But proof alone wouldn't be enough. She needed power, money, and position. She needed to become someone Marcus would never see coming. ####The transformation begins. Isabella sold everything she owned of any value. She took on loan shark debt that terrified her but gave her starting capital. She used her recovered evidence to quietly blackmail one of the junior executives who had participated in framing her. Not for money, but for information and connections. With careful planning and ruthless determination, Isabella began investing in penny stocks, using every bit of financial knowledge she had gained working at Blackwood Industries. She made risky plays that sometimes failed but more often succeeded. Slowly, painfully, her capital grew. Isabella found herself in a tiny studio apartment in the worst part of the city, working 3 jobs just to afford rent and food. She cleaned offices at night, waited tables during the day, and did data entry from home in whatever hours remained. The work was backbreaking and humiliating, but it kept her alive. One night, 6 months after her release, Isabella was cleaning the executive floor of a downtown office building when she overheard a conversation. She had learned to be invisible in her cleaning uniform. People talked freely around her as if she didn't exist. 2 men in expensive suits stood by the window of a corner office, smoking cigars and laughing. "Marcus really pulled it off," one man said. "Getting rid of that Laurent girl so cleanly." Isabella froze, her hand gripping the vacuum cleaner handle. "Brilliant move," the other agreed. She never suspected he was the one who framed her. He got her access codes from her laptop when she wasn't looking, hired that hacker to create the fake emails, even set up the offshore account himself. All to clear the way for his new partnership with Genesis. And he ended up marrying the Genesis CEO's daughter instead. Talk about a strategic alliance. Their laughter echoed as they walked away, leaving Isabella standing in the shadows, her heart pounding with fury and revelation. Marcus had done this. Marcus, the man she had loved, the man she had trusted with everything, had systematically destroyed her life for a business deal. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that she felt physically ill. ###The fire of revenge ignites. That night, Isabella didn't go to her other jobs. She sat in her tiny apartment, staring at the wall, letting the truth sink in. She had lost everything. Her career, her reputation, her freedom, her future. All because Marcus Blackwood needed her out of the way. But then something shifted inside her. Marcus testified against her. He stood in the witness box, handsome and composed, and described how he had noticed her suspicious behavior in recent months. How she had been secretive about her work, how she stayed late at the office alone, how she had suddenly started asking detailed questions about company projects outside her department. All innocent actions, now twisted into evidence of guilt. "Did you love her?" the defense lawyer asked during cross-examination, his only moment of competence. Marcus paused, and for a brief second, Isabella saw something flicker in his eyes. Regret? Doubt? But then his jaw tightened. "I thought I did. Now I realize I never really knew her at all." Those words cut deeper than any verdict could. ###The verdict that changed everything. Guilty. The single word echoed through the courtroom. Isabella's knees nearly gave out. The judge sentenced her to 5 years in prison, suspended to 2 years with immediate effect, plus restitution of $2 million to Blackwood Industries. Money she didn't have and couldn't possibly pay. Her assets were frozen. Her apartment was seized. Her savings account emptied by legal fees and court costs. In 1 month, Isabella Laurent went from being a successful marketing director engaged to one of the city's most eligible bachelors to being a convicted corporate criminal with nothing but the clothes on her back. She spent 3 months in county jail before her lawyer finally secured her release on a technicality: improper evidence handling. But the damage was permanent. Her conviction would remain on her record. No company would hire her. Her friends had abandoned her. Her family, ashamed of the scandal, had cut off all contact. ##### rock bottom and a dangerous discovery. Miss Laurent, you need to come with us, one guard said firmly. The police are waiting, another executive added with barely concealed satisfaction, as they escorted her out of the building she had helped grow. Past colleagues who whispered and pointed, Isabella felt her world crumbling. She had designed the marketing strategy that doubled Blackwood's profits. She had worked 18-hour days, sacrificed weekends, poured her heart into this company. And now they treated her like a common criminal. Outside, reporters had already gathered. Someone had tipped them off. Cameras flashed as questions were shouted at her. Miss Laurent, did you steal company secrets? Is it true you betrayed your fiancé's family business? How much did Genesis Corporation pay you? Isabella shielded her face, but she knew the damage was done. By evening, her face would be on every news channel, labeled as a corporate thief and traitor. #### the trial that sealed her fate. The trial was swift and brutal. Isabella's court-appointed lawyer seemed more interested in his phone than her defense. The evidence presented against her was damning. Emails she never sent, transactions she never made, meetings she never attended, all documented with digital timestamps and signatures. How do you explain these emails from your account? The prosecutor demanded, holding up printed messages that detailed supposed negotiations with Genesis Corporation. I never sent those, Isabella insisted. Someone hacked my account. And the $500,000 deposited into your bank account last month? Isabella's blood ran cold. What? There's no such deposit. That's impossible. But when they showed her the bank statements, there it was, a massive deposit from an offshore account, made to look like payment for corporate espionage. The perfect life shatters. Isabella Laurent stood in the conference room of Blackwood Industries, her hands trembling as she held the folder that would destroy her life. 20 executives stared at her with cold eyes, their judgment already decided before she could speak a single word in her defense. Miss Laurent, the chairman's voice cut through the silence like ice. We have evidence that you sold confidential project files to our competitor, Genesis Corporation. Do you deny these charges? Her throat tightened. Yes, I deny them completely. I would never betray this company. I've worked here for 5 years. 5 years of planning this theft, apparently. The voice belonged to Marcus Blackwood, her fiancé of 2 years. No, her former fiancé, she realized as she saw the coldness in his blue eyes. The same eyes that had looked at her with love just yesterday now held nothing but contempt. Marcus, please, Isabella whispered. You know me. You know I would never do this. He stood, buttoning his expensive suit jacket with calculated precision. I thought I knew you, Isabella. Clearly I was wrong. The evidence is overwhelming. Your access codes, your email account, even your personal laptop, everything points to you. ##### the evidence that destroyed everything. Isabella's mind raced. Her laptop, her access codes? She had been so careful with security. Then it hit her, someone had framed her. Someone with access to her accounts, someone close enough to manipulate the evidence. Marcus, listen to me, she pleaded, stepping toward him. Someone set me up. Please just give me time to prove it. Security guards entered the room at a signal from the chairman. Marcus turned away from her, unable to meet her eyes as the guards approached. She left before he could see the tears threatening to spill from her eyes. Outside in her car, Isabella finally let herself break. She had wanted confirmation of Marcus's guilt, wanted to hear him admit what he had done. But actually hearing it, seeing the acknowledgement on his face, hurt more than she had expected. Because part of her, the part she tried to bury, had hoped there was some explanation. Some reason that would make it all make sense. But there wasn't. Marcus had betrayed her knowingly, deliberately, and she had almost let herself forget that while playing the role of Elena Rivers. No more, she vowed. No more sympathy. No more doubt. It was time to finish what she started. Time to make Marcus Blackwood pay the full price for what he had done to Isabella Laurent. The game of hearts was over. Now came the endgame. #burning for redemption. ## part 3. Truth and redemption. ## the mask falls away. Isabella didn't sleep that night. She sat in her penthouse apartment, staring at the city lights, replaying every word of the confrontation with Marcus and Sophia. The truth was finally out in the open, at least partially. But instead of satisfaction, she felt empty. Her phone buzzed at 3 a.m. A text from an unknown number. Asterisk, we need to talk. I know who you are. Marcus asterisk. Her breath caught. How? When? She had been so careful. Another text. Asterisk, Isabella Lauren. That's who you really are, isn't it? Elena Rivers is just a disguise. Asterisk. Isabella's hands shook as she typed. Asterisk, I don't know what you're talking about. Asterisk. His response was immediate. Asterisk, your eyes. I looked into Elena's eyes tonight and finally saw what I'd been missing. They're the same eyes that looked at me with love 2 years ago. The same eyes that pleaded with me during the trial. How could I have been so blind? Asterisk. Isabella threw her phone across the room, then immediately regretted it. She retrieved it and found 3 more messages waiting. Asterisk, I need to see you. Asterisk. Asterisk, please Isabella. Let me explain. Asterisk. Asterisk, meet me at Riverside Park tomorrow at dawn. Just you and me. I owe you the truth. Asterisk. She shouldn't go. Every logical part of her brain screamed that it was a trap, a manipulation, another way for Marcus to control the situation. But her heart, the traitorous, foolish part of her that still remembered loving him, wanted answers. Against her better judgment, she texted back. Asterisk, I'll be there. Asterisk. Hashtag the confrontation at dawn. Riverside Park was deserted at dawn, mist rising from the water as the first rays of sunlight pierced through the trees. Isabella arrived early, positioning herself where she could see Marcus approaching. She wore simple jeans and a sweater. No more Elena Rivers armor. If he knew the truth, there was no point in pretending. Marcus appeared at exactly 6 o'clock, looking as though he hadn't slept either. His hair was messy, his usual perfect appearance replaced by something more raw and human. Isabella. He said her real name like a prayer. I can't believe you're really here. Standing in front of me. Alive. What did you expect? Isabella's voice was cold. That I'd just disappear? That your convenient little scheme would erase me from existence? I thought. He stopped, his face contorted with emotion. I thought you'd hate me too much to ever come near me again. I do hate you, Isabella said fiercely. I hate you more than I thought it was possible to hate another human being. You have every right to. I don't need your permission to hate you. She stepped closer, all her rage finally unleashed. You destroyed my life. You framed me, you lied in court, you watched me be convicted of crimes I didn't commit. You let me go to prison, Marcus. You let me lose everything while you married your business deal and lived your perfect life. I know. His voice broke. I know what I did. I've known every single day for 2 years. Then why? Isabella demanded. Why did you do it? Was I really that easy to sacrifice? Marcus looked at her with such raw pain that it momentarily stunned her into silence. It wasn't supposed to happen to you. What? Hashtag the truth revealed. Marcus sat heavily on a park bench, as if his legs could no longer support him. The frame job, the evidence, all of it, it wasn't meant for you. It was meant for someone else. Isabella stared at him. I don't understand. 2 years ago, my father was diagnosed with advanced cancer. Marcus began, his voice hollow. He had 6 months to live. The company was everything to him, his entire legacy. But there was a problem. Blackwood Industries was on the verge of collapse. That's impossible, Isabella protested. The company was thriving. That's what everyone thought. That's what my father wanted everyone to think. But we had made catastrophic investments that were about to be exposed. We were leveraged so badly that bankruptcy was inevitable. My father would have died watching everything he built crumble. Marcus looked up at her, his eyes haunted. Genesis Corporation offered a lifeline. A merger that would save us. But they had conditions. The CEO's daughter, Sophia, wanted to marry into the Blackwood family. And they wanted certain complications removed. Complications. Isabella repeated numbly. The CFO at the time, Richard Wesley. He had discovered the illegal accounting practices that hid our debt. He was going to blow the whistle. Genesis provided us with evidence to frame him for corporate espionage instead. A clean trade, his reputation for our survival. Isabella felt sick. But you didn't frame Richard Wesley. You framed me. My father changed the plan without telling me. Marcus's voice cracked. When I agreed to the scheme,